James Krasnerick back here with the second segment of my show about the top 10 players not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Before I go on the list, I think I'm going to give you guys a couple of names of players who were borderline candidates to make this list that were also snubbed several times to the Hall of Fame. One of those guys would be quarterback Ken Anderson. Played for the Bengals in the 70s and the mid-80s. Won the NFL MVP award in 1981. Had the record for the longest time for completion percentage in a season at 74.3, which he set in 1982. And he also led the Bengals to the Super Bowl, which I guess speaks volume for itself. But, you know, there were other great players of that era that I think deserve to be inducted ahead of him. And one of those guys from that era is number 7 on my list. Strong safety, Donnie Shell. Now, a lot of people think, you know, I already got 2 Steelers on this list. Am I being biased? I'm not being biased. I'm honestly telling you, these are the guys that deserve induction in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I'd have had Shell number 1 on my list. But now that I'm thinking, you know, more unbiased, I've dropped him to 7. Regardless, he still is long overdue for the Hall. For one, he's got 51 career interceptions, which is not an incredibly high sum, but you consider the fact that he played strong safety, probably one of the best totals in league history, and he definitely had the most interceptions by strong safety in league history, easily having the lead over anybody else. Was 5 times a Pro Bowler, the same as Mel Blount, his fellow defender in that secondary amongst the Steelers of the 70s. Also 3-time All-Pro, just like Blount. And he was a member of all 4 of the Steelers Super Bowl teams in the 70s, 74, 75, 78, and 79. He was a key member of that defense. People didn't give him credit because he knocked out one of the toughest running backs in league history. 1978, Steelers go into Houston and play the Oilers. Earl Campbell's the running back. It's his rookie year. He's lighting up the league. He's this bowling ball running back. Hall of Famer, one of the greatest power runners in the history of this game. Earl takes a handoff, goes off right tackle, does a little spin move. Donnie Shell meets him and puts him right on his ass. Just such a clean hit. You heard the hit outside the stadium, just crushed him. And for Donnie Shell to have administered that big a hit to launch and to knock one of the toughest running backs in league history out of the game, that's pretty damn impressive. I mean, not a whole lot of people can say that. Now, I think another reason that Donnie Shell has been inducted in the Hall of Fame is the same reason L.C. Greenwood hasn't. His era, so many Steelers in that defense have already been inducted. Honestly, I have a hard time believing that anybody but L.C. Greenwood has a good chance to make the Hall of Fame of that 70s defense. Because people think it was, you know, that you can't have everybody be a Hall of Famer. Well, I think that pretty much, other than, you know, maybe 2 or 3 guys, that whole defense should be in the Hall of Fame for considering how good they were. I think there was a 2 or 3 year period where at least 7 defenders from that defense were named to the Pro Bowl. To have 7 guys from one defense in the Pro Bowl is pretty damn impressive. Now, Donnie Shell was one of the most underrated safeties in the league because he was a very, very good blitzer, was a very, very good cover man, and was a very good hitter. He was just underrated because the fact he played on the best defense in league history, and there were already so many other great players on that defense, it's not really his fault that he gets overshadowed. One of the toughest hitters and greatest interceptors amongst strong safeties in league history. We're moving on here. Number 6. Wide receiver Tim Brown. Mr. Raider. 1,094 catches, 5th in league history. 14,934 receiving yards, 5th in league history. 100 receiving touchdowns, 7th in league history. He also has the 4th highest total amongst punt returns with 3,320 career punt return yards, and his 19,679 yards are 5th in league history. And 9-time Pro Bowler, and made an appearance in Super Bowl 37, although his Raiders would lose to the Buccaneers. Tim Brown's a guy who did not get inducted in his first try, or first 2 tries, because, you know, a logjam of wide receivers to enter the Hall of Fame. You know? We haven't seen a whole lot of receivers inducted lately because, you know, we feel that, you know, I don't think the voters can honestly say one guy was that much better than the other. If you look at the three three receivers most deserving to get in the Hall, Chris Carter, Tim Brown, and Andre Reed, none of them have Super Bowl rings. They all have high totals for their era. But, which one do you induct? You can't induct one, really, without making an argument for the other. And that's why I don't think a lot of them have been inducted. What makes Tim Brown special is he was a very, very talented wide receiver. Great hands, great body control, very, very speedy. And as a punt returner, incredibly versatile. He could do just about anything you wanted out of a skill position player. Eventually, he will get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's just going to take a while because, of the backlog of receivers of that era and in NFL history that deserve to go in. But I think he's really, really legitimately got a shot this year. Moving on now. Number 5, linebacker / defensive end Kevin Greene. 160 sacks, third in league history. 5 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pro performances, 10 career seasons with 10-plus sacks, and 6 with at least 13. Again, probably the most underrated player at his position in league history. Because when you think of a 3-4 linebacker, you need a guy that can get to the quarterback. You need a guy that can shed blockers. You need a guy that could, if anything, run over blockers, run around them, run by them, whatever. And you need a guy who can also play some run defense too. And Kevin Greene could do just about everything. He was quoted about him as to say he had pass rushing down to a science. He knew what the snap count was going to be. He knew what the quarterback was going to call. He knew he'd look for every single pre-snap advantage he could so to give him the best chance to get to the quarterback. And he did it third most in NFL history with 160 sacks. He played for the Rams, Niners, Steelers, and Panthers. He was a huge reason why each team was successful. In the late to early 90s when the Rams made the NFC Championship games, it was because he was a big part of that defense, getting to the quarterback and putting pressure on opposing passers. And then when the Steelers went to the Super Bowl against Dallas and lost, Super Bowl 30 and 95, again, he had 3 great years, 93, 94, and 95, where he just dominated. And it was a huge reason the Steelers' defense revived itself. Then he goes to San Francisco for a year. He doesn't go to San Francisco. He goes to San Francisco later in his career, pardon me. But after that, he goes to Carolina, and he's a huge reason why that team goes from underdog to the NFC Championship game. In only its second season, they advanced to the conference title game, large part due to the impact he had in that defense. The reason I don't think Kevin Greene's been inducted is I think you kind of have to look the part, and with his long blonde hair, he doesn't really look like a normal sack, like a sack expert. He looks more like a beach bum. But can you honestly say there was any better pure pass rushers in league history? Guys that did that one thing so well? There weren't that many. Third most sacks in league history. I thought it kind of was a little bit of a crap call that Chris Dolman, who has 10 fewer sacks and never played in a Super Bowl, last year got inducted, and Kevin Greene, who's played and won and been in many more big games than Dolman, didn't get inducted. Kevin Greene's got a very, very good chance this year because the candidates, other than the first-timers in Michael Strahan and Warren Sapp, and he's got more sacks than those guys, there really isn't that many great defenders that are eligible for the Hall of Fame. I think he's got a great shot because of what he was able to do as a pass rusher. But then again, you don't give enough credit, really, for his ability to play the run and to play on the fly a little bit in the pass. He plays a lot, like some of the linebackers in today's game, some of the more hybrid linebackers, like Terrell Suggs, who can play a little bit of everything. Can play pass defense, a guy like Von Miller. Von Miller's a great example of what Kevin Greene's like. Or I could just use Kevin Greene's understudy in Green Bay, Clay Matthews. That's exactly how Kevin Greene played. Had down to the long hair and everything. I think Kevin Greene's got a very, very legitimate chance to make it this year. He's been on the ballot for I think a decade now. And I think it's high time that he finally gets inducted because as a pass rusher, in his day, there might not have been anybody better. All right, that was number 7 through 5. Coming up later on my list, can a player's attitude and personality be the reason he gets left out of Canton? That'll also come to light in the heated debate over the top 10 Hall of Famers, top 10 Hall of Fame snubs in NFL history.